Right, good afternoon everybody. Very warm welcome to all of you who are here with us in the Royal Society, and also a warm welcome to those of us who are joining online. The people who are joining the live stream include Alison Park, who should be standing here doing what I'm doing now. Unfortunately, Alison hasn't been very well. And so she's not here, and I know, as I spoke to her earlier today, how disappointed she is not to be here to be able to celebrate with you all. So I pass on our good wishes to her to get better, and also her good wishes to you for a wonderful ceremony this evening. So I am Isabel Stephen. I'm Executive Director for Strategy, Performance and Engagement at UKRI, along with my job share partner, Emma Linsell. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, apart from the fact that the reason why I'm here is because Alison is not here, and to be able to join you all to celebrate, highlight and reward the economic and societal impacts achieved by the researchers funded by the Economic and Social Research Council. The ESRC Celebrating Impact Prize Awards have been running for 10 years now, and it's a testament to the value that we see in understanding how and where impact is created by the work that you all do. And this awards ceremony is a chance for us all to understand the excellent research impact which ESRC funding has, both here in the UK and globally. There's another anniversary that we're celebrating this year, because the Impact Prize is part of the Festival of Social Science 2022. And the festival is ESRC's flagship public engagement initiative, and this is celebrating its 20th year. It's really impressive how much is achieved by the festival, together with our partners across the UK, and we put on a series of inspiring and interesting events. The theme this year is My Local Area, and there are over 200 events running between the 22nd of October and the 13th of November. The events explore the world of social science from, for example, how society has shaped local areas, behavioural changes that fight climate change, and we have events in the UK, both virtually and in person, and something for everyone. So do have a look at festivalofsocialscience.com and see what you might like to participate in. There's one particular prize which I wanted to highlight before we get into the ceremony proper, and that is the John Hills Impact Prize 2022. This is a special prize. We invited applications from social scientists who've achieved outstanding impact over a sustained length of time and have had an impact on a large number of people. But all the finalists, all of you who are in this room, have achieved remarkable things in your work. And we hope that by encouraging and supporting social scientists to maximise the impact of their work, we are helping to ensure that independent, high-quality research informs decisions across a wide range of policy areas and helps make a genuine difference at the local, national and international level. The research that we fund improves our understanding of how we make decisions, how we feel and behave, on our mental health, education, work and family lives. Researchers consider how organisations innovate, how to achieve a fair, regionally balanced economy, and how we can reduce the carbon we emit. And this evidence informs decision-making and efficient public service delivery. Over the course of the ceremony, you will see 12 short films about the finalists' work and its impact, and I will show you what a broad range of topics the finalists' work covers, from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic to environmental protection and conservation, regional inequality, health services, election design, and student loan systems, a wide variety of topics. Can I thank all the finalists for the work that they do? Congratulations on the things that you've achieved. And also, can I thank the members of the Impact Prize panels, both the Outstanding Impact panel and the John Hills Impact Prize panel, for your contribution and work in judging the applications. We're also going to hear from our award presenters who use research to make decisions in their everyday working lives, which kind of brings back the full circle. So I really hope that you enjoy the ceremony and that you find it very inspiring. So I'm going to start by inviting our first award presenter to the stage. David Shallcross is the Impact and Evidence Manager at the Connection at St Martin in the Fields. He supports ESRC in his role as a member of the Strategic Advisory Network, and he acted as a member of the panel for this year's Outstanding Impact Prize categories. And David is going to present the Outstanding International Impact Award. So I'm handing over to David.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm a member of the Strategic Advisory Network for the ESRC, and I was also one of the members of the judging panel for this round of the Celebrating Impact Prize. I would like to say what a tremendous honour and privilege and pleasure it has been to be involved in this prize. As a panellist, I was repeatedly struck by the originality and the quality of the submissions, and perhaps most of all by their optimism. All the candidates, no matter what stage they're at in their career, showed an exhilarating commitment to using their talents and the academic resources at their disposal to improve the world around them, in business, in public policy, in protecting human well-being, or the natural environment. This optimism is what I would like to recognise today. I work for a homelessness charity as a monitoring and evaluation advisor, and in frontline services such as mine, we often lack the opportunity to interrogate the social processes that produce complex and persistent social problems such as homelessness. Partners in academic institutions are uniquely placed to do this by the light of their cross-disciplinary perspectives, innovative methods, and sustained inquiry. Therefore, I would like to thank you all for the ways in which your work drives positive impact. Your optimism is contagious. I would also like to call on you to collaborate with charities and other organisations delivering services, as I think that together we could achieve even more. Lastly, thank you again to the ESRC for giving me the chance to be involved and inspired. Okay, so in the Outstanding International Impact category, there is only one finalist. The team of Professor Michael Bruter and Dr. Sarah Harrison from the Electoral Psychology Observatory at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Their research on the psychology of election participation has shaped understanding of electoral best practices internationally. This has led to more accurate election polling, improved processes, and a better experience for citizens, especially for those who are underrepresented, such as disabled people, minority ethnic groups, and first-time voters. Let's see their film.
I'm Michael Bruter, and my ESRC-funded research with Sarah Harrison has enabled us to help election management bodies put citizens at the heart of elections and improve the experience of voters, particularly first-time voters and those with hidden disabilities. It's encouraged greater participation in elections by these groups.
Our research represents a shift in approach by proposing a voter-centric model of electoral psychology, where we focus on the questions and problems that matter most to voters, to understand how they experience elections, rather than the questions that primarily interest parties and institutions and have historically been the focus of political research, like how someone will vote.
We also engage with practitioners and collaborate closely with leading international electoral commissions, including in the US, the UK, South Africa, and Australia. Our approach has helped us demonstrate how frequently underestimated elements of electoral organization affect electoral experience, attitudes, and behaviors. We found that the first two elections in someone's life determine lifelong participation. And when those elections happen in one's life also matters. We find that lowering the voting franchise to 16 years old leads to a more positive electoral experience and long-term engagement.
We also find that young and first-time voters have significantly more positive experiences when voting in polling stations than when they vote remotely, for instance postally or on the internet. Young people do not tend to participate in elections because of a sense of duty to vote, but rather because the first vote is an exciting first time.
We've also discovered that disabilities have a significant and negative impact on electoral experience. Hidden disabilities, such as those that relate to mental health and learning difficulties, have an even greater impact compared to visible disabilities. Engagement with our research in the Palestinian territories has led to new initiatives intended to promote the inclusion of women and young voters. Technical changes have also supported the redesign of ballot papers and polling stations to better accommodate the needs of disabled citizens.
I first met Michael Porter and Sarah Harrison in 2013 in a conference organized by the Center of Parliamentary Studies in Kuala Lumpur. Their presentation on voter participation in elections was a revelation in that it not only looked at the implementation of elections, but considered the operational environment of polling stations. They influenced the Central Election Commission in Palestine to foster stronger ties with election stakeholders. So we are not only the implementer of elections process, but also promote the democratic process in full partnership with the community we serve. This is evident in our new approach to addressing first-time voters and in our design of polling stations to respond to the needs of people with disabilities. This also affected our electoral reform process of the Palestinian municipal elections. As a result, the system now encourages better gender representation of voters in elections, and more young people are now able to run for elections due to the lowering of candidates' age. At the technical level, the Central Electoral Commission has now introduced processes to enable people with disabilities to exercise their voting rights independently.
Our research has benefited electoral processes in multiple countries. It has informed the work of leading polling agencies, and it has shaped the recognition of best practice in elections around the world, improving engagement with and access to elections, especially for those who too often feel excluded from democracy, such as first-time voters and people with disabilities.
Okay. Very important. It comes as no surprise that I can announce that the winner for the international category is Electoral Psychology Observatory for Optimizing Citizens' Electoral Experience, and that's the team of Professor Michael Bruter. I would like to invite them to the stage to accept their prize, and please also say a few words.
We're guinea pigs for that. Thank you very much. We didn't expect to win. I will until it was announced that we'd be the only ones. Yeah, sorry. The interviews you get for those sort of things tend to be blank moments, but there is one answer I remember we gave, and it was to say that impact sometimes takes the form of fireworks, and sometimes is more like a slow-burning things. And Sarah and I are very proud with our team to be the slow-burning type of impact. I would like to thank our team, not least Sandra Obradovitz, who is with us tonight. And we would also like to thank all the practitioners, people who work in electoral commissions, in parliament, in government, who've trusted us, but also have accepted our criticism, because our role has been to try and put voters at the heart of election and explain to the people organizing elections what they are doing wrong. So if impact enables us to tell people who do politics to accept that sometimes they could do things even better, it means that the money invested by the ESRC and UKRI in research is going to make a difference for a very long time. So thanks again, everyone, and congratulations to us, I guess.
Thank you very much, David, and very warm congratulations to Michael and Sarah, who I enjoyed chatting to earlier. So our next presenter, which I would like to introduce, is Jo Shanmugulingam, who is Director General for Science, Innovation and Growth at the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And Jo will be presenting the Outstanding Public Policy Impact Award.
Thank you, and fantastic to be here today. I guess I have two particular interests here today. So through my role in the work of our department, we're really proud to sponsor, fund UKRI and therefore the ESRC. But also as government, me and my colleagues are consumers of the important research from the economic and social science communities. And as Michael so importantly just said, to hear where we don't have things right and where things need to improve and how we can do that. If you think about our particular responsibilities as a department, the underlying issues of productivity in the UK, all the work to support the business community through COVID, how we manage the transition to a net zero economy and a net zero society. The work of this research community is absolutely pivotal to that, and we need to understand it deeply and partner with you from government. I was looking at some of the winners of last year as examples of the research which is so important to us in government. Productivity from below, a collaboration between researchers, innovators and civil society partners that help grow and create ethnic minority-led micro-businesses in the Midlands. And then during the pandemic, pivoted to launch a business initiative to help those businesses access government support and government emergency funding. And then at the totally opposite end of the spectrum, the Early Career Impact Prize winner, Rebecca Windermere, who researched the 25-year planning consents that regulate UK onshore wind and solar farms, which led to policy changes in Wales, greater guidance on end-of-life considerations for that onshore energy infrastructure, and increased community awareness of how to influence those local wind and solar sites. So turning then to the potential winners of this year's Outstanding Public Policy Impact category. We have 4 finalists this time round. So the first is Professor Laura Beer from the London School of Economics and Political Science, whose research into the impact of COVID-19 on families, neighbourhoods and communities influenced policies on the right to say goodbye to loved ones, social bubbles for extended family networks, the prevention of racialised stigma, and the UK's first national community health initiative. The second finalist is Professor Laura Dearden and Professor Bruce Chapman from the Centre for Global Higher Education at the University College London. Their research collaboration has supported radical reforms to Columbia's university student loans system, which will allow at least 10,000 extra poorer students annually to access higher education. The third finalist is Professor Philip McGann and Professor Tim Vorley from the Productivity Insights Network. Their work offered new perspectives on the cause and effect of comparatively low productivity in the UK and informed policy debates and strategies at the devolved, regional and national levels. And finally, the fourth finalist is Professor Nicola McEwen from the University of Edinburgh, who shaped new reforms between the UK government and the devolved administrations that promise more transparent and effective intergovernmental processes and practices. Let's see their films.
COVID has shown us the importance of families, neighbourhoods and communities, all of which are examples of what academics call social infrastructures. When the links between these groups are broken, this increases inequality, but when they are built, they are key to recovering from crises. My ESRC research in West Bengal in India showed how policies could negatively impact social infrastructures. From this, I built an approach to policy based on a social calculus, which looks at how interventions affect networks of care and support among marginalised groups. I then applied this to understanding the UK economy as a co-manager of the ESRC Centre on Rebuilding Macroeconomics based at UCL. When COVID-19 struck, I applied the social calculus approach in a national emergency.
Laura's key contribution was to help SAGE understand and emphasize the important role communities play in forming solutions. The way we could do this was by receiving real-time evidence from Laura's research. This perspective was critical in making sure that the science advice that SAGE provided to government emphasized the importance of tailoring communication and preferences that were appropriate to all citizens and communities. It also helped us increase our understanding of how science, and particularly social science research and methodologies, can help inform public engagement and communications.
We found that while COVID measures damaged social infrastructures, the national emergency also inspired communities to help vulnerable members of society. We tracked these links as they were broken and rebuilt. As a result, I advocated for policies to support marginalised households, such as the right to say goodbye to loved ones, social bubbles for extended family networks, community health initiatives, and the prevention of racialised stigma. My proudest and most humbling work was on the community champions. I advised the Ministry of Housing, Community and Local Government, now known as the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, on social infrastructures to address vaccine hesitancy and public health. 60 of the most deprived local authorities were funded to develop community champion schemes. Local and voluntary sector groups mobilised against the odds. They delivered food parcels with public health leaflets inside them, cooperated across communities to provide vaccines in mosques and other places of worship, and gave debt advice or mental health support. Between May and October 2021, because of cooperation across the NHS, local authorities and community champions, the percentage of over 50s who received both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine increased in all ethnic groups, and in some by over 20%.
Since October 2020, Laura has provided crucial advice that has been central to design, implementation and evaluation of the new DLUP Community Champions Programme. Community champions, also known as health champions, are community members who volunteer to promote health and well-being or improve conditions in their local community. Champions use their social networks and life experience to address barriers to engagement and improve connections between services and disadvantaged communities. We formulated our approach to the Community Champions initiatives using Laura's research and papers as a basis. She contributed directly to the overall design, call for proposals from local authorities, and training and valuation processes. Her ideas, writings, and assistance have led to the current success of the programme, which is running in 60 local authority areas in the most deprived areas of the UK.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, I provided evidence that meant communities could be better supported in their moments of loss, navigate their caring roles, and work together to overcome public health challenges.
In November 2021, Colombia legislated for far-reaching reforms to university student loans. They mean a fundamental change from a 70-year-old system that required loan repayments by students, irrespective of incomes, to a much fairer income contingent loan system, in which repayments are only made when debtors can comfortably afford to do so. My name is Lorraine Dearden, and my work with Bruce Chapman at the ESRC-funded Centre for Global Higher Education focuses on the design of student loans around the world, including in Colombia. Bruce and I have over 50 years joint international experience, and we shared this experience with local analysts in the Colombian student loan provider known as ESRC. ESRC was led by Manuel Acevedo, and we worked with local analysts Ivan Morales, Juliana Aragon, and Germain Pulido. For over 3 years, we all worked closely, and our joint research and modelling enabled the highly progressive changes that begin in January 2023. As part of this collaboration, we made several visits to Colombia and worked with ESRC to link data on student loans, earnings, and educational outcomes. The first time such linkages have happened in any country to our knowledge. This allowed us to build a sophisticated student loan model for Colombia. The model showed in really clear terms why the current system was causing severe financial distress for a significant proportion of students, and also why there'd been widespread protests against the loan system and ESRC. For example, we found that even before COVID-19, almost half of students had, at some point in time, had to use over 90% of their earnings to repay their student loan. This explained why default rates were extremely high and showed why those from the poorest backgrounds were the worst affected by the loan system.
We work hard with the knowledge that Lorraine, Bruce, and many other researchers from the UK and Australia and Colombia in order to be capable of developing this system tailored to the needs and capabilities of Colombia. The use of the data that Colombia has compiled for several decades have proven to be the key to success. We feel grateful with the work that Lorraine has done and all the people surrounding her in order to be able to commit the resources, knowledge, and capabilities for the amount of new students that will be capable of coming into the higher education system.
How they finally were convinced that they needed to change the loan system was seeing the data. We knew all their earnings, and we could show them that they could have got much more revenue with an income contingent loan.
This exercise can serve as a template, as a way of other countries to pursue loan reform that is happening in Colombia, because they're asking the question, could we do this in our country as well? And those countries have exactly the same problems, and they will persist until they have the kind of changes that have now been initiated in Colombia.
Importantly, it will have an immediate impact on students from the poorest backgrounds. We're confident the reforms that start taking place from January 2023 will eventually mean that no loan holders will have to worry about defaulting on their loan in Colombia.
Productivity in the UK is flatlining. Differences in productivity across UK regions are amongst the highest in the industrialised world, and improving regional productivity has become a national challenge. Productivity is a multidimensional issue, the core of which is economics, but also includes social, environmental, geographical, health-related, psychological, legal and governance issues. I'm Philip McCann, and with Tim Vorley, I led the ESRC Productivity Insights Network, or PIN. Our work has opened up the debate on the productivity puzzle in the UK beyond economists to engage the wider social science research community and to foster closer collaboration with national, regional and devolved governments across the UK. The aim of PIN was to widen the productivity debate through participation with academic, public, private and third sector bodies who bring new insights. Together, the individual projects and the cumulative impact of PIN changed the tone of the productivity debate in the UK and were a major influence on the levelling up agenda, as well as a range of devolved and regional policy debates.
The success was contingent on our engagement with a range of senior policymakers, officials and ministers across the duration of the project. The Productivity Insights Network has brought together researchers from a diverse range of disciplinary backgrounds to try and think about how we can broaden our understanding of productivity through new insights and new evidence. The network drew together diverse strands of productivity research and translated these into accessible and actionable insights for businesses and policymakers. Funding from the ESRC was fundamental to the success of the Productivity Insights Network. Most of our funding we distributed through small grants to the network of interdisciplinary researchers across the UK to undertake research on different dimensions of the productivity puzzle.
I'm Jackie Batswell, a senior economist in the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, and in conjunction with the Levelling Up Task Force, my team led on the development of the UK Government's Levelling Up White Paper, published earlier this year. The work of the Productivity Insights Network directly influenced the writing of the Levelling Up White Paper, with 11 direct contributions from PIN being included in the White Paper's arguments. Phil McCann and colleagues from the network have consistently provided responsive, expert advice to guide and inform the regional perspective of the productivity debate.
Our body of research highlights the need to think about productivity as a system, recognising the complexity and interdependence of the productivity puzzle, and to look at productivity through a place-based lens, which recognises regional differences and challenges across the UK. The work of PIN has contributed significantly to the research agenda of the ESRC Productivity Institute, which I'm happy to be a member of here at the University of Manchester.
Good working relations are essential to the functioning of devolution and ultimately to the stability of the political union. Yet this has been the neglected dimension of devolution for many years. I'm Nicola McEwen, and in a series of ESRC-funded projects, my research drew attention to the importance of intergovernmental relations and also to the weakness of the machinery and the processes designed to manage these relationships in the UK. These weaknesses were laid bare during the Brexit process, when all governments recognised that leaving the European Union created new challenges for the UK's own system of internal governance. They agreed to work together to design a new, more effective system that would be fit for purpose. But the relationships between the UK and devolved governments were also severely strained by the Brexit process. Devolved governments were unable to influence UK policy on Brexit, but yet were profoundly affected by it. Effective intergovernmental relations require empathy and mutual understanding, for example through learning about and respecting the roles and responsibilities of each administration. It also requires respecting the political and democratic context within which each administration operates. I had the privilege of informing and shaping the joint review of intergovernmental relations commissioned by the Prime Minister and the leaders of the devolved governments. Our report and subsequent engagement with officials shaped the design of the new intergovernmental machinery that emerged from the review earlier this year.
Working with Professor McEwen, she is a trusted source of expertise on intergovernmental relations by both senior officials and ministers within UK government. As a lead official for the UK government in the Intergovernmental Relations Review, my team and I relied heavily on her work. Her reports, articles and blogs, and her regular engagement with me and my team supported our policy development and often provided the evidence base underpinning policy change.
I also had the opportunity to undertake a secondment with the Scottish Government and worked with officials within its UK relations team to develop policy and strategy towards intergovernmental engagement. I worked with officials to deepen their knowledge and understanding of intergovernmental relations, to build policy capacity, and also to support their wider engagement with the academic community.
With Nicola on the team, we were able to draw on a deep well of expertise, insight and challenge, not just into the mechanics of intergovernmental relations, but also into the cultural and constitutional issues at stake. It matters that the governments within the UK have arrangements that enable them to work together, even if there's profound disagreement about policy, as there often is. It's also important for democracy that we have arrangements that support parliamentary accountability about the way the government's interacting.
The relationships between governments largely take place behind closed doors, and that makes it really difficult for parliaments and the public to hold them to account for the positions that they take. I served as an advisor to a Scottish Parliament committee and also as expert witness in 27 committee inquiries across the UK's legislatures. My advice helped parliamentarians to scrutinise intergovernmental relations. My evidence informed committee recommendations in parliamentary debates, helping to shape new law. I'm proud to have played a part in supporting the joint review of intergovernmental relations and informing wider debate about its importance.
The changes that were announced in January of 2022 are certainly promising, but my research also makes clear that if these changes are to restore trust and build a more effective system of intergovernmental relations, these changes must be accompanied by empathy, by a willingness to share power, and by mutual respect for each administration.
This is where I can only get things wrong in actually managing the process. So I'm going to announce now the runners-up and would ask you all to come up to the right-hand side of the stage, and then you'll each come onto the stage in turn. So the first runner-up in the Outstanding Public Policy Impact category is Productivity Insights Network for their work on the Productivity Insights Network and UK regional and urban inequalities, being collected on behalf of the team by Professor Philip McCann. The next runner-up in the Outstanding Public Policy Impact category is Professor Nicola McEwen. She's unfortunately not able to attend today due to family illness. Apparently I get to collect the trophy on her behalf. And the final runner-up in the category is Professor Laura Baer for introducing a social calculus of disadvantage to UK-19 policy. So that means that the winner of the Outstanding Public Policy Impact Prize is Project 2.5, the Centre for Global Higher Education for Transforming Student Loans for Higher Education in Colombia, being collected on behalf of the team by Professor Lorraine Dearden.
Wow, I wasn't expecting this, and I know I've broken the rules and brought up the team, but it was a real team effort. Herman's here studying in London, but was part of the team in Colombia, and Bruce was part of the team. Firstly, I'd really like to thank the ESRC for funding this work. I don't know if you know, but it's really hard getting funding for something as unsexy as student loans. But it really, really matters in particularly all over the world, but particularly in developing countries. If there's not student loans, where there's lots of private universities, poor kids cannot go to university. It was a wonderful team effort. I worked weekly with a man and his wonderful colleague, Juliana, young researchers in ISATEX, We had many visits. I think we've come up with a student loan system which we're pretty confident is going to transform the lives of Colombian students. So thank you, ESRC.
Thank you very much to Jo for presenting that award. Many congratulations to Bruce, Lorraine and Germán, but also to everyone else who was involved in all of the projects that were finalists, because I think we could all agree the videos put over what impactful research they have all been doing. So the next presenter for our next award is Hitan Shah, who is Chief Executive at the British Academy. He's been there for 2.5 years. Previously was at the Royal Statistical Society. Hitan is going to present the Outstanding Early Career Impact category.
It's a moment of uncertainty for the research community at the moment. Will we associate with Horizon Europe or not? What's going to happen at the fiscal event in a couple of weeks' time? So, it's a wonderful moment to have this, just so that we can shelter from some of the things that are going on, the kind of wider uncertainty that we're facing. And I want to congratulate the ESRC. It's 10 years of this Celebrating Impact Prize. And I mean, we've seen already from today's entries just how inspiring the work is. And I think that the more that we can all do to kind of get this work out there, into the minds of politicians and the public, that's a real service that the community is already doing, and we need to tell that story. And that, I think, is why, on behalf of the British Academy, our partnership with the ESRC and with UKRI more generally is so critical to us. It's really important working together, trying to tell that story of the impact of our disciplines. Some of the things that we're working on together include the new Equality, Diversity, Inclusion Caucus, thinking about EDI all the way across and what works in terms of actually creating that ecosystem for research. And of course, not only are there instabilities for the research community, but in particular, life can be very precarious for early career researchers these days. So again, I feel very proud and honoured to be asked to present this award today. It's so critical to give a spotlight to the valuable work that early career researchers are doing. And in our own little way at the British Academy, we've set up a new early career research network to try and support early career researchers, very much led by the work that they're doing. And some of the funding that we give, I think, complements that of ESRC and UKRI. But I mean, before I introduce the winners, let me just finish my words by paraphrasing the immortal words of Whitney Houston, who didn't quite say, "I believe early career researchers are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way." But I think she probably would were she asked to give this award today. So we've got two finalists in the Outstanding Early Career Impact category. The first is Dr. Pamela Buchan. Her ESRC-funded PhD research has led to a range of initiatives by local authorities, conservation charities and marine organisations, changing people's relationship with the ocean. And this has also helped secure funding to establish the UK's first national marine park. The second finalist is Mr. Winfried Dotcher-Bobocci. His ESRC-funded PhD project has increased the quality and accessibility of birthing services for women living in eastern Ghana and its nearby regions. It's provided new methods for using health and survey data to reduce maternal and neonatal mortality in other countries. So let's have a look at their films now.
When people love and depend on a healthy ocean, they can develop a marine identity, which will in turn motivate them to take action to protect the ocean if they feel that a healthy marine environment is under threat. Taking action for the sea is known as marine citizenship. I'm Pamela Buchan. My ESRC-funded PhD with the Southwest Doctoral Training Partnership looked into what motivates people to do marine citizenship and how policy and practice enables people to take action. What I found was that the motivation for marine citizenship really comes from having a positive relationship with the ocean, and that grows out of having positive sensory experiences of the marine environment. I collected survey data about who marine citizens are and psychological aspects such as their values and environmental attitudes. And I undertook interviews and observations of people participating to really understand where marine citizenship comes from. I found that place is really important for marine citizens getting involved in marine decision making. For example, local government planning and environmental decision making is more visible and accessible to people than at national or international scales because it takes place where people live. Feedback and outcomes are more readily available, making it easier for people to use their right to contribute to marine policy.
We've just been to Tinside Pool and just enjoying swimming in the salt water. It's beautiful.
Well, I think because we live here as well, we're just making the best of where we live, where we're surrounded. It just makes sense, doesn't it?
It's really important to me that my research has impact, and that's why I'm so happy that this new framing of marine citizenship has been embedded into the practice of the Ocean Conservation Trust.
Pam has come in with our school's programme manager and our public and community engagement manager and reviewed all of the evaluation that we do to just try to look for areas that might be tweaked a little bit to help to support marine identity theory. So actually, our 5-year plan for ocean advocacy and engagement, the top line thing is how can we help people to find their marine identity? So that's hugely influenced by Pam's work.
Marine citizenship has now become a recognised goal for local government. By providing expertise, I participated in a groundbreaking project, the Plymouth Sound National Marine Park. It has secured a £9.5 million grant for a 7-year project with the ambition to improve access to and experiences of the water and promote ocean connectedness and marine identity.
Conservation is delivered by people, for people and through people. So the whole premise around Pam's research is actually understanding how we can engage those people, what the tools are, how we can monitor and evaluate the progress and the change that is happening, and from that be able to frame a new relationship with the sea, and it becomes a model that we can then use for successive generations.
Pam's work has also helped us change policy. After I'd read Pam's paper, I actually got one of our planners to rewrite a section of the planning code such that it was more difficult, in a sense, to privatise the spaces around the waterfront that will prevent physical access to the waterfront.
Using my research findings, I developed the idea of a local government ocean recovery declaration. I partnered with the Local Government Association Coastal Special Interest Group and the Ocean Conservation Trust to create a model motion that people could ask their local council to debate.
Marine citizenship is more than just personal environmental actions like ethical shopping or choosing to have a low carbon footprint. It's also about public actions such as signing petitions and really campaigning to change the whole of society's relationship with the ocean. The motion for the ocean helps local councils to play their part in realising a clean and healthy ocean. 13 councils so far have made a declaration, and they represent nearly 1.7 million people.
I got so caught up in that I forgot that it was actually my turn to come back up again. So I'd like to now invite the runner-up to the stage. So here's the envelope. I too find out now what's going to happen. The runner-up in the Outstanding Early Career Impact category is Mr. Winfried Dotche-Gabotsky for his work on geospatial analysis for Ghanaian maternal healthcare delivery and
Ghana,
international policy. It's like a wedding, everything's dictated by the photographer. And so the winner, of course, of the Outstanding Early Career Impact Prize is Dr. Pamela Buchan for her work on prioritising marine citizenship for ocean recovery in policy and practice. Do you want me to hold these bits?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Gosh, that's a surprise. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is amazing because everyone's talking about climate all the time and they don't really talk about the ocean enough. And so to see that the work that I've been doing here and this movement that is growing around recognising the importance of the ocean is fantastic. Thank you so much for this. I definitely need to do some thank yous, and there are people who I would have liked to have been here today, but they weren't available. I'd like to thank Nicola Bridge at the Ocean Conservation Trust, she's like my champion. She's amazing, and she's taking this research that I've done and the findings and taking it out into her networks in Europe and in the UN. And I need to thank Patrick Knight, who you saw both of these in the video. He's from Plymouth City Council, and he's just been, again, fundamental within the council to really understand my work and take time and to put that into the different avenues that you saw in the film in terms of planning and in terms of what's happening with the Plymouth Sound National Marine Park. And I also want to thank the ESRC, as well as funding my PhD that created the findings. They've also funded me for a postdoctoral fellowship, which I started last month, and that is continuing this work, particularly with the National Marine Park, and to develop this concept of marine identity so that we can work out how to really generate more impact and really create change for everybody for the future. Thank you very much.
Those of you who are familiar with the Oscars will know that the horror of any presenter is getting the order of the candidates wrong, and I successfully didn't do that, but of course you will have noticed that I got up before the other video was played, so I did screw up one thing and we're now going to rectify that.
In Ghana, the number of deaths due to pregnancy and childbirth-related complications remains high. Improving the quality of birthing services in health facilities is the most effective way of reducing maternal mortality, and maternal deaths will be reduced if the travel time to quality health facilities is within acceptable limits. I am Winfred Doche-Bogochi, and my research investigated the quality of birthing services in Ghana. It has informed the Ghana Health Services decisions to improve the quality and distribution of health services to reduce maternal and neonatal mortality. My research was funded by an ESRC studentship through the South Coast Doctoral Training Partnership. I undertook field visits to conduct a service provision assessment of birthing services in Ghana. This meant I worked directly with the Ghana Health Services maternal health managers to assess and implement interventions while collecting data. The data were also made available to them to use for planning and policy. I analyzed routine birth data and conducted a census of 152 health facilities providing birthing services to determine the service availability, readiness, and quality, and I collaborated closely with the Ghana Health Service in planning and implementing the research to ensure it will be relevant and to help maximize its impact. The assessment identified how the location of the woman and the travel distances from birthing services and the quality of these services affected their use. It showed that distance significantly reduces the prevalence of mothers giving birth in a hospital, while higher quality increases it, and the effect of quality is more profound. Also, more than half of the women, about 56%, were living beyond the critical recommended 2 hours travel to quality birthing services. My analysis provides insights into the relative importance of maternal health service quality versus geographic access to healthcare facilities, and help inform Ghana Health Services priority setting and decision making. Through my close work with the Health Service, my research was able to contribute to their work to improve access to and use of health services to promote health and well-being. This is important as improving geographic access and utilization of quality maternal health services reduces the number of deaths due to pregnancy and childbirth-related complications.
INFRA's greatest impact was capacity building. It increased the depth in how we analyze routine data and use this for making decisions and improving the quality of our services. His contribution has been immense. He discussed with us what he has observed in the field and turned these into interventions. The research really demonstrated how the health service has to make structural changes in the provision and distribution of healthcare facilities. And Winfred worked really closely with us to deliver these changes.
My research potentially affects approximately 1.5 million women and their relatives living in the 33 districts covered by the study area. About 300,000 women from 2 nearby districts in the Greater Accra region also benefit from my research as they travel across the regional border to use birthing services in the eastern region of Ghana. I am proud of my work in Ghana and the impact that it has had on the quality of birthing services in Ghana health facilities. Now, through my international collaboration with the United Nations Population Fund, similar methods for modeling spatial inequalities are being scaled up in Burkina Faso, Kenya, Pakistan, and other countries.
Thank you very much, Eaton, for presenting that award, and warm congratulations to both Hamada and Winfred for their work, both here and internationally, really important work, and so exciting to think that you're at the beginning of your careers and there's so much more that you'll be able to achieve in the years to come. I'm very pleased now to introduce our next presenter, Sir Andrew Mackenzie, who's our chair at UK Research and Innovation. Andrew is a Fellow of the Royal Society. He's also received a knighthood for his services to business, science, technology and Anglo-Australian relations. And he's held many senior roles in lots of very prestigious companies, including Rio Tinto, BHP and Shell. So I'm very happy to ask Andrew to come up and present the Outstanding Business and Enterprise Impact Award.
Okay, well, thanks, Isabel. I'm here to very much present the award that's most appropriate for my longer-term background, the impact on business and enterprise, outstanding impact on business and enterprise. But I thought I would just make a few remarks about the role of social science and indeed the ESRC within UKRI. I don't agree with Lorraine Dearden. You're not unsexy. In fact, in many respects, one of the things that attracts me most to UKRI is that we don't just include the obvious things about research and innovation, which tends to be where I come from, which is sort of physical science and engineering, but we include the arts and humanities as well as the subjects that the ESRC deals with. Look, and I would be the first to admit, as a physical scientist and engineer who's worked in industry, that very often social science is more accurate than we are as engineers. I would also want to say that, that in many respects, most innovation that we would like to make happen through UKRI, it can only work if we understand its fit with society. And in many cases, the stage of getting social acceptability of innovation is more tricky than actually inventing something in the first place. And one of the biggest challenges that we have in the UK in making ourselves a more innovative nation is diffusion. We have many sectors where we have one or two people who are world leaders and who are highly innovative, and then a long tail which for whatever reason, and it's almost certainly in the social sciences, does not pick up that innovation and enjoy benefits to the whole country through through diffusion. And I know that the ESRC works very hard on this through its innovation adoption hubs. But also, I mean, we're not just about innovation for, if you like, commercial gain and some of the other benefits that can come from that on economic growth. But we are looking for broader forms of innovation, innovative policy. We've seen some good examples of that here already, and just the way an innovation in the form of governance. But ultimately, of course, all of this does lead to something that I feel passionately about, and I have done a lot of that in my own industrial career, which is productivity. And I think Philip McCann in his work, had a long chat to him earlier, and the Productivity Insight Network is just so critical. And it's so pleasing to me to see how much influence they've had in things like the Department of Levelling Up. And, you know, for us, a lot of innovation, it has to touch many of the businesses that are driven in many ways by social science. It's the services sector. And I've found in some ways the most exciting innovation, the most exciting productivity gains that I've been able to bring about is not on the assembly line, but is actually in the white-collar parts of industry, where many of the softer things that you deal with, but still quite easy to measure, make a big difference. And look, the ERCC does lots of things in this area. I mean, just looking through things pretty randomly, you know, the way in which you look into homes being more age-friendly, health at work, fundamental to productivity. Cyber-secure purchasing, definitely in the way of protecting revenue. Public attitudes to many new forms of innovation. I just happened to see something on aviation. And actually the whole digitization more generally, or I was always at pains when I was in industry not to appoint an electrical engineer to write the digital strategy. I always tried to find somebody who was much more clued into the social aspects of what was happening, and that's certainly going to touch all these things I talked about earlier, about being accurate, acceptable, and having more diffusion. So, with that, I have a relatively straightforward task, and so, you know, shame on me if I don't get this one right, because there's only one finalist in my category, and that's Professor Susan Durbin from the University of the West of England, along with her team. And it's her research into something that I feel very strongly about, and you can check me out on this one, which is the underrepresentation of women more broadly in industry, but she actually has focused on aviation and aerospace, and that has led her to the introduction of a unique industry-wide mentoring scheme. I suspect it's well beyond aerospace, which can support and nurture women to build their careers in a profession that is traditionally male-dominated, and that was certainly true for me in mining and in parts of the energy sector. She's also changed how leading aviation and aerospace businesses address gender, and is helping the industry to better understand how to recruit, and more importantly, to support women, to retain women, I would say, and have them flourish, you know, in industry. So I think we'll see more of that in the film. So, roll on.
I'm Susan Durbin. I'm a professor at the University of the West of England, and I led an ESRC-funded research project that developed a women's mentoring scheme called ALTA within the UK aviation and aerospace industry. The scheme has now been funded by a number of high-profile companies and organisations across the sector. ALTA was designed to address the underrepresentation of women in the industry and also the chronic skills shortage. It's a unique collaboration between the social sciences and the aviation and aerospace sector. It focuses on the benefits gained by companies that are normally competitors, working together to achieve greater gender equality and diversity.
The underpinning research was designed to identify the provision of support to women in the sector and the gaps in that provision. During 2015, the team carried out a survey and interviews and focus groups with 250 professional women, employers and HR directors from across the industry. At the time, none of the founding ALTA partners, Airbus, the Royal Air Force, Little Blue Private Jets Limited and the Royal Aeronautical Society, or other industry employers, specifically provided mentoring support for professional women.
It was an incredible opportunity to be able to work with the University of the West of England that gave us the opportunity to base ALTA on evidence and on an extensive work that they did with women in order to specifically tailor the platform to what women asked for and what they needed. And the support of Sue Durbin continued not just in the initial phase, but also bringing a lot of different mentoring sessions in the workplace, and also talking about unconscious bias. We've greatly helped women to understand how to bring change in the workplace.
The findings indicated that an industry-wide focus would be especially attractive to women, as this would enable them to connect with women outside of their own organizations. And there was a need for a women-only mentoring scheme.
ALTA is a practical solution that meets women's needs. It connects women across the industry by creating a mentoring platform that works both online and in person. This has facilitated the creation of new networks, opening up access for junior women to senior female colleagues. The approach has created unprecedented opportunities to build careers through networking, a key struggle for women in all industries, and is breaking new ground by bringing together rival companies to discuss overarching sectoral concerns.
I run a small private aviation business, managing and chartering private jets for a range of customers all over the world. And we have many women working in the business, and we use ALTA to support them to face challenges that they may find along the way, especially working in a male-dominated industry. ALTA as a project had a fundamental impact, first of all, in the way that the Royal Aeronautical Society has started to think about diversity in general. And then the fact that ALTA now is a part of industry, that's helping to change the culture throughout the aviation and aerospace industry in the corporate environment as well.
The benefits of ALTA are felt throughout career stages. As mentees, women learn how to become mentors themselves and to develop their technical skills, building empathy, communication and management skills. I am proud that to date, 454 users have signed up across the industry, with 296 mentees, 59 mentors and 99 who are both mentors and mentees. ALTA is based on what women told us they wanted from an industry-wide mentoring scheme, which was enabled through the underpinning academic research. It enables women to connect, to come together and to support one another across the industry.
Okay, well, there's no big surprise here, but I'll take it out and remind you that the winner of the Outstanding Business and Enterprise Impact Prize is Professor Susan Durbin for her work on mentoring support for women through an industry-wide mentoring scheme. So, if you'd like to come up, Susan.
Thank you. Really surprised. Didn't expect this, but we're absolutely delighted. So this is part of a massive team effort, so I just wanted to do some thank yous. First of all, to the ESRC for having the insight to fund this project, almost 7 years ago, and we're still going strong as a team now. So Anna Lopez and Stella Warren were my partners in crime for the research team. So we basically ran the research that underpins the project. But I'd also like to thank our industry partners who are watching us online. So Judith Milne from Little Blue Private Jets Limited, Alessandra Badino from Airbus, Nick Davis and Akelia Moxon-Black from the Royal Aeronautical Society, and Victoria Fulton from the RAF. Without this team, ALTA wouldn't be what it is today. I'd also like to thank all the women who took part in our research, because what we wanted from this scheme was we wanted to know what women actually wanted from an industry-wide mentoring scheme. So that really helped us to shape the scheme itself. I'd also like to thank all the mentors, so all the women that have stepped forward in the industry in their own time, free of charge, to mentor women across that industry. So I'd like a big thank you to them, and to the Royal Aeronautical Society for taking OUTA in-house and helping us to shape it into what it is today. And finally, I'd like to thank my university for giving me the time to work on OUTA. And I'd like to dedicate the prize to all the women in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Andrew for presenting that prize, and warm congratulations to Susan and your team for the win. It's really lovely to see such a practical example of research slipping over into the workplace. Our next presenter is Professor Jackie Waba. Jackie sits on the ESRC Council and is Professor of Economics at the University of Southampton, where she leads migration research at the ESRC Centre for Population Change. And Jackie is going to present the Outstanding Societal Impact Award.
So I'm really delighted today to actually be introducing this award, because this is the award for societal impact. And as a researcher myself, as a producer of research, I know how much it really means for each one of us as a social scientist, as a researcher, to actually produce research which has an impact on society, which makes lives better, which makes the society better. And we endeavor to actually produce research and social science research which provides evidence, which also, in a way, understands and provides better understanding of behavior, whether it's behavior of consumers, employers, the public, particular vulnerable groups, but also, more important, we endeavor to provide evidence on solutions, on interventions. And today we're very lucky to have two examples of work which actually has made outstanding societal impact. So the first finalist is Professor Daisy Fancourt from UCL, or University College London. This work actually was funded by the ESRC. This is the March network, and it was established to study COVID-19 and to conduct real-time data analysis. The study provided real-time insight into the psychological and social impact of the pandemic, and this insight shaped national and local COVID-19 policies. It helped charities and health organizations support individuals and informed the public as well as to how best to protect their own mental health and well-being. The second finalist is Professor David Gadd from the University of Manchester, and his research into why some young men subject women to coercive control and violence. His research has shaped new interventions by charities and support services and influenced domestic abuse policy at national and regional levels. It also fostered the introduction of preventative domestic abuse education in secondary schools. So we are going to watch now both films.
The latest UK case of coronavirus is the first to be contracted within the country rather than abroad.
When COVID-19 reached the UK in early 2020, we knew that the virus's consequences would not be limited to infection and case rates. Lockdowns and restrictions would have monumental social effects, including on mental health, finances, social cohesion and behaviours. I'm Dr. Daisy Fancourt, and with Professor Andrew Steptoe and the COVID-19 Social Study Research Team, we created the UK's largest study tracking the everyday experiences of adults during the pandemic. Our study was able to happen because of the ESRC-led March network, a network of over 2,000 academic and community partners. The March network helped form the bedrock of our COVID-19 social study, which totalled 1.2 million online surveys over 105 weeks from more than 70,000 individuals, allowing us to understand how the pandemic and social restrictions affected people's lives. We examined how mental health and well-being changed, how health behaviours such as diet and exercise changed, how the pandemic affected people financially, patterns in loneliness levels, abuse and suicidal thoughts, the experiences of people with long COVID, and which groups were more vulnerable to adverse experiences. We also looked at how government policies affected people, whether people trusted the government and its decisions or had confidence in the health service, and to what extent people complied with social distancing restrictions. We also investigated the experiences of people who were at particular risk of poor mental health by conducting over 400 telephone interviews with individuals and organisations. We were able to see differences across age groups, gender, location, economic backgrounds, professions, and multiple other factors, allowing us to truly explore and compare how COVID-19 affected people. Most notably, our COVID-19 social study found that inequalities that existed before COVID-19 have been exacerbated by the pandemic, meaning that those who carried heavier psychological burdens or faced financial hardship before the pandemic are now worse off and need urgent attention and prioritisation. The study's findings have had many impacts. We've had remarkable stories at an individual level of how people have been affected by taking part, for example, using the data to help them track and manage their own mental health, seek help if they needed it, connect with others, and engage in healthier behaviours. At a community level, charities and local authorities used our data to decide when to implement mental health support for the public, as well as identify which population groups needed the most support, estimate the socio-economic impact of the pandemic in certain regions, and how attitudes towards the vaccine and boosters varied.
So we used the COVID-19 social study to help us develop a map of vaccine hesitancy for the UK. We worked with Daisy and her team to understand some of the main factors that could make people more hesitant to taking the COVID-19 vaccine. And then based on those findings, we found publicly available data sets, spatial data sets, that allowed us to map for local authorities within the UK where people might be more hesitant. And then we shared this map with the wider voluntary and community sector, which played a vital role in the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine. As the British Red Cross, we ran a Vaccine Voices programme, which was trying to dispel some of the disinformation around the vaccine for people who might feel especially hesitant, and we could target to certain population groups based on the findings from Daisy's study.
Without the ESRC-led March network, this study would never have happened with the pace and impact that it has. We're incredibly indebted to the remarkable team efforts of the scientists involved in the study, our funders and advisors, the policy, health and community organisations we've collaborated with, and of course the remarkable efforts of all of our participants who've given their time so generously.
One in 4 women will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. We know that rates of gender-based violence tend to be highest amongst teenage girls and young adult women, and that boys and men tend to be the primary perpetrators. Achieving meaningful reductions in rates of domestic abuse requires educating men about the nature of coercive control, why some men resort to it, and why it is a poor means of securing trust in intimate relationships. I'm David Gadd, and my research with Claire Fox, Ian Butler and Mary Louise Corr has helped improve the practice of charities and support services working in the domestic abuse sector. It has also helped to improve government policy on domestic abuse. Our ESRC funded From Boys to Men project helped to understand why some young men are domestically abusive and what can be done to prevent this. We found that there is a real need to invest in accessible services for these boys and men so they can get the help and guidance they need before their behaviour becomes even more dangerous. Service providers need to anticipate that some of the most abusive young men will have very limited experiences of relationships in which love and trust have been experienced positively. As well as problems with their own violence, abusive young men are likely to have other problems, including substance dependencies, mental health problems, having been abused or having been let down by other professionals. In the field of gender-based violence, it's imperative that any work with men and boys who are abusive also enhances the safety of victims, survivors and their children.
I've long admired the work of Professor David Gadd and the work he's been doing with young men and boys, which focuses on behavioral change. Over the years, Professor Gadd has opened up conversations about what is truly needed for young men who are beginning to use violence in their relationships to increase their understanding of their behavior and find pathways to change.
We've influenced many of the main social media campaigns directed at changing the behaviour of boys and men. The first of these was the Home Office's This Is Abuse campaign, which was run in partnership with MTV and Channel 4 and generated nearly 5 million hits on its YouTube channel. Our work has been cited in parliamentary debates to help make the case for preventative domestic abuse education and for a perpetrator strategy in the UK. It features in training resources for organisations like Respect and Safe Lives, where it's used to train new generations of practitioners working with young men with domestic violence problems.
David was ahead of the game, and I consider his work to be really groundbreaking. Interventions in the space of domestic abuse have traditionally been what to do about when a bad thing has already happened and how to work with the victim, rather than having a preventive focus on those who are actually using abusive behaviour in the first place. We can only talk about perpetrators if we bring them into the conversation. And due to David's work, I've seen a significant adoption of the understanding that you cannot end domestic abuse unless you talk openly with people who are using that abusive behaviour. My organisation's benefited from that increasingly holistic view as we understand how we can build those cohorts and gather qualitative insights and data. It's important that our work is evidence-led, and David's been really open and supportive in getting our organisation to the stage we've now reached. And David's insights and approach have really supported the raising of our ambitions as an organisation.
In 2021, I led the drafting of Greater Manchester Combined Authority's 10-year gender-based violence strategy. In Greater Manchester, we are now engaging with boys and men and providing a portfolio of interventions that are responsive to the needs of a wide range of perpetrators. Our research has established what more can be done to reduce the number of young men who become domestic abuse perpetrators, influencing the work of charities and domestic abuse policy at regional and national levels.
So it is my great pleasure to announce the runner-up in the Outstanding Societal Impact Prize, Professor David Gadd, for his work in shaping domestic abuse policy and practice. So the winner of the Outstanding Societal Impact Prize is UCL COVID-19 Social Study Team for providing real-time insight into the psychological impact of COVID-19 nationwide, being collected on behalf of the team by Dr. Daisy Fancourt.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honour to be receiving this award on behalf of the team. It's been a really humbling experience to be able to play a role in the pandemic over the last few years. We're obviously hugely grateful to ESRC, who were so supportive in letting us pivot our existing research with them onto this work as soon as the pandemic broke out. And we're also grateful to the Nuffield Foundation and Wellcome Trust, who provided additional financial support throughout the last 2 years of the study. With a study like this, it really was an amazing team effort, both from the scientists who were involved and also through the hundreds of community organisations that we collaborated with. They were really our pathway to impact, so I want to say a huge thank you to all of them. But I also really want to acknowledge the participants in this study. This was a very high-intensity involvement for people contributing studies weekly over 2 years. And we were actually warned early on that we were likely to lose between 80 and 90% of our participants within 12 weeks. And actually 2 years later, we still had tens of thousands of people taking part. So none of this would have been possible without them, and it's a real demonstration of the altruism that so many people played during the pandemic. So I want to say thank you so much to all of them. Thank you.
So thank you to Jackie for awarding that prize, and many congratulations to Daisy and your team. It sounds like your team consisted of tens of thousands of people for that prize. So very, very warm congratulations to you. So we've now concluded our outstanding impact categories, but there remains one more prize for this year and 2 more finalists. And this is in special recognition of an academic who had profound impact on government policies and as such on people in the UK. So we run a special category to mark the 10th anniversary of this prize, and this is the John Hills Impact Prize. So before we award the prize, we're just going to show you a short film which will set out some of the impacts of Professor Sir John Hills, and also features Alison Park, which is rather nice given that she hasn't been able to be here today.
John is remembered across ESRC, the London School of Economics, and the wider social science and policy community for his leadership and his contribution to social policy, particularly in relation to poverty and equality. His death in December 2020 was a shock to all of us who had the pleasure of working with him or benefiting from his work. John leaves an immense legacy of research impact.
I'm delighted that the ESRC are offering this award in memory of my friend and colleague, John Hills. John achieved enormous policy impact with his work throughout his career, from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation Income and Wealth Inquiry back in the 1990s, through the Pensions Commission in the 2000s, the Fuel Poverty Review on social housing, the National Equalities Panel, many, many high-profile instances of John's research having an impact directly in the policy process. But John also trained and mentored many generations of students and junior colleagues in understanding the relationship between research and policy making. And who knows, some of those people who were influenced by John might be among those who are nominated for this award.
I had the pleasure of working with John Hills on a number of occasions, and John clearly made an impact across a range of topics. But for me, it was his impact in the world of pensions that I will remember him most for. John had that great ability to link profound academic understanding with clear language and analytical thinking that worked for policymakers. John was one of the 3 members of the Pension Commission chaired by Adair Turner and set up by Tony Blair, which wrote a groundbreaking report which has framed pensions policy in the decades since. Indeed, such was the effectiveness of that commission in building up a consensus that to this day people talk about the Turner Consensus on pensions. John's unique contribution was the analytical approach and rigour that he brought. The recommendations were based not on dogma, but on evidence and on argument. And in such a contentious area, he and the other commissioners managed to produce a report which has been widely adopted across the political divide. We now have automatic enrolment into workplace pensions, from which 10 million people have benefited. And without the groundbreaking work which John and his colleagues did, I doubt that would ever have happened. He will be much missed and his work will have a lasting legacy.
So to present the John Hills Impact Award 2022, I'd like to invite someone who you've actually just seen on the screen, who has worked very closely with Sir John and can tell us more about him and the exemplary role of research and impact leadership he played. Dr. Tanya Burchard is Associate Director at the Centre for Analysis and Social Exclusion, and she's also an Associate Professor in the Department of Social Policy at the London School of Economics. So welcome to the stage, Tanya.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you also to Alison, who I know was instrumental in setting up this award, which I'm very privileged to be able to present this evening. I work, as Isabel said, in the Centre for Analysis of Social Exclusion, which was indeed established as an ESRC-funded research centre back in 1997, established and directed by John until 2016. So we've just celebrated, in fact, our 25th anniversary. But right back then, in the early days of CASE, the way that John set up the centre was to put impact at its heart. And that was at a time before impact was really discussed in those terms at all. And he did that in a number of ways. He initiated a user fellow scheme under which senior civil servants and journalists, people from the voluntary sector, could come and spend 3 months in CASE to engage with relevant research in a deeper way than was possible in their regular work. And in the process, those user fellows established relationships with CASE and with academia more generally that in many cases lasted for many years thereafter. John also invested in media training before that was very widespread, and in fact he brought in a young Evan Davis from the BBC to provide media training to junior researchers. And I distinctly remember at one such event asking Evan how you could avoid being cut off mid-flow by a TV or radio interviewer, and I didn't get a straight answer, so I'm still waiting on that one. But perhaps most importantly, in terms of how John embedded impact in the way that CASE was set up and run, was through the mentoring that he did and the leading by example. John demonstrated that it was possible to combine mastery of detail with the narrative clarity that really brought messages to life. That the most impactful outputs were those that stuck resolutely to the facts, but also helped the reader to see the wood for the trees. John could quote, as those of you who knew him would know, absolute chapter and verse about the detail, for example, of the UK benefit system, when supplementary benefit became income support and what impact that had on the way that child elements were counted and so forth, what assumptions Treasury microsimulation models made about take-up of pension credit, and so on and so forth. But that knowledge contributed to, rather than obscuring, his ability to identify and communicate the big messages. For example, in his book, Good Times, Bad Times, where he talked about the significance of the income smoothing function of social security over the life cycle, even for wealthy families. The approach to impact that John embedded in CASE reflected his wider understanding of how research influences policy, and which he came to describe in his teaching as the limestone model of research impact. And in this model, the research findings fall like rain on the political and public landscape. Inevitably, some of it will run off as surface water and is lost. but much of it gets absorbed, and in multiple places across that landscape, not just by politicians and officials, decision makers, but also by journalists, by activists, by NGOs, and crucially also by students and by fellow academics. The new insights and new ways of thinking generated by this research then in this model seep through the many layers of the limestone, through multiple channels, and eventually through persistent rainfall, a well-defined stream is created which emerges from the rock as a policy outcome. I do apologise to any geologists in the audience for no doubt distorting the physical process. John would have been accurate in the geology as well as the metaphor. But this idea, this model of how research influences policy is modest, it's collaborative, and it's long-term. It's not all about the slot on the Today programme, though John certainly had plenty of those, nor is it about being invited into number 10 Downing Street, although John did that too. It's about a lifetime of commitment to making a difference, a conviction that change is possible, and an openness to working with people from all walks of life. And it's these characteristics that I think tonight's finalists for the John Hills Impact Award also very much embody. So I would like to introduce these two finalists now, and then we will watch their films. So the first is Professor Heather Joshi, CBE, from the Centre for Longitudinal Studies at the University College London. Heather has been a leading architect of the ESRC's prestigious longitudinal studies infrastructure. Her work throughout her career has exposed social inequalities to break the cycle of disadvantage, and her influence on government policies relating to women, employment, working families and pensions has made a difference to the everyday lives of British people across multiple generations. The other finalist is Professor Jane Miller, OBE from the University of Bath. Jane has drawn on her deep understanding of social policy to inform social security provisions on which the lives of millions of people in the UK depend. From her influential ESRC-funded research on lone parenthood to her contribution to debates about universal credit and its design, she's made a profound contribution to developments in the welfare state in the UK. So let's watch their films.
To understand social change, we need to consider how individual lives change through time. This is taking what we call the longitudinal perspective. I am Professor Heather Joshi. With ESRC's support, I've been part of a dedicated group of social scientists who have been tracking social change in Britain for generations through the British birth cohort studies. The findings from these studies have shaped the world we live in and the policies that underpin our social system, and like the work of Sir John Hills, provided the evidence informing political decisions to reduce inequalities. My research career began in 1979 at the ESRC Centre for Population Studies. I had always been interested in the economic role of women and the changes over the generations in its compatibility with motherhood. I came from a line of female forebears with exceptionally high educational achievements for their time, but whose careers had been curtailed by marriage and motherhood. This led to my interest in promoting the UK's world-leading longitudinal data resources for future users and to do justice to the contributions already made. In 1994, I joined the management team of the British Birth Cohort Studies, becoming director of the Millennium Cohort Study in the year 2000. I'm probably most proud of the contribution I have made to developing Britain's birth cohort studies into pivotal policy resources. Today, these studies are also used by thousands of researchers worldwide, influencing thinking on issues from educational and social inequalities to mental health and now the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have also inspired similar studies from around the world, from France to Ethiopia and New Zealand.
Heather's made an extraordinary contribution in her role as director of 3 of the UK's birth cohorts.
And it's impossible to overstate the importance of her perseverance, together with John Bunner, in getting funding to ensure the survival of the cohort studies during the 1980s and 90s. She was also a crucial voice in making the Millennium Cohort Study happen, 30 years after the previous cohort, and has been an influential advocate for the new early life cohort. Heather's always believed in the potential of social research to drive real change, and her own research has been critical in developing fairer policies for working women and mothers.
In the 1990s, I was able to contribute to a mounting debate on the treatment of pension assets in divorce proceedings. My colleagues and I had used longitudinal data to explore how women's lifetime incomes and pensions reflected the earnings penalties of motherhood. We went on to work with departments and parliamentary committees through successive governments on their draft legislation, which eventually led to improved pension rights for women and the fairer single-tier system in force today. I also played a critical role in pushing forward the legislative priorities for the government during the late 1990s and early 2000s. We were able to show that the children of working mothers developed just as well as those whose mothers stayed at home. The findings encouraged the government to pursue policies supporting working families.
In 1999, I was a lecturer at the London School of Economics, and I was seconded to the newly established Women's Unit in the Cabinet Office. And when I was there, I commissioned Heather Joshi to produce a report on the cumulative effects of the pay gap, both in terms of women's pension entitlements, in terms of their ongoing benefits entitlements, what it meant if they worked part-time. This was really a groundbreaking report, and it was used right over Whitehall. So we went to Treasury, to the Prime Minister's unit, to the Department for Work and Pensions.
Policies affecting how women manage their working and family lives have struggled to keep pace with social change. My research has informed both political decisions to support working mothers to the benefit of them and their families. As the percentage of paid workers who are mothers has gone up, any impact on children has diminished. There has been an increasingly friendly environment for families who combine paid work with raising children. Pension reform was a critical piece of this puzzle. The move to a single-tier system brought forward equal pension rights by a decade, and the introduction of pension sharing protected thousands of women from losing out on their incomes in old age. The ESRC has been a steadfast investor in the UK's social science data infrastructure, and the cohort studies in particular. None of my work, or the work of so many other users of longitudinal data, would have been possible without this investment.
My name is Jane Miller. My research is focused on the design, implementation and impact of social policy in the areas of social security, family and employment, looking in particular at gender inequalities and changing family patterns. My doctoral thesis, which was funded by the ESRC, examined the living standards of lone parents using data collected by the then Department of Health and Social Security. Over the years, my ESRC-funded work has broadened to explore a wide range of issues in social security policy, and this has influenced government policy and the design of tax and benefit schemes in the UK and around the world. This prize is in memory of Professor Sir John Hills. His research very clearly showed that most people will receive some financial support from the state at some point during their lives. In fact, social security benefits affect the living standards and incomes of millions of people. That's why it is so important. Before I started my master's degree, I spent some time unemployed and claiming benefits myself. This got me thinking about social security and how the system might be improved. I later worked in the research unit at the Department for Health and Social Security. That helped me to understand the role of research in the policy process. My work on lone parenthood has examined the challenges facing these families where there's one parent, usually the mother, bringing up children alone. I explored this by looking at several aspects of the family welfare system, including benefits and employment. This research has been instrumental in the development and evaluation of policies to help lone parents move into and stay in work.
It's all too easy as sort of policymakers to look at things in sort of snapshots. You have a particular piece of research at a time, and you sort of you look at that and say, X% of lone parents think this or whatever. And actually looking at it longitudinally, and which is what Jane sort of brought to this, was to really sort of show that lone parents and households more widely lived a really dynamic life. And her research sort of showed that and helped us understand that when we were designing both the New Deal for lone parents and then lone parent work focus interview regime, that actually they needed to make sure that they responded to those ever-changing lives and some of the sort of the issues that may have caused.
My recent universal credit research with colleagues at the Universities of Bath and Oxford was funded by the ESRC. We have looked at the experiences of couples seeking to balance work, care and finances in this new context of joint claims to a single means-tested benefit. This research highlighted issues in the system that have had a significant effect on the welfare of those in receipt of universal credit. These have included problems of fluctuating earnings, of debt recovery, the structure of childcare support, the single monthly payment, and the 5-week wait for the first payment.
Jane has made an enormous contribution to the policy world. Her research on lone parents, on social welfare payments, on universal credit, all of this has gone on to influence how policymakers evaluate and design these programs. She has really shown for the Department of Work and Pensions the value in mixed methods research, the value of qualitative research, and she's also built relationships between government departments and academic organizations like the University of Bath that have benefited both tremendously over the years.
So one of the things I would say that I'm proud of is that over the years I've had a chance to work with so many excellent undergraduate and postgraduate students and with younger colleagues to help them develop their research, but also to help them to make their links into the policy world and into policy debates. I really do believe that policy is better when it's informed by excellent research.
So I'm now very pleased to announce the runner-up for this award. The runner-up in the John Hills Impact Prize 2022 is Professor Jane Miller for her work on social policy and the changing family in Britain. Please do come. And that means, of course, that the winner of the John Hills Impact Prize 2022 is Professor Heather Joshi for informing policy by documenting generational change in social and gender inequality.
Well, it's a tremendous honour to be contributing to John Hills' legacy, which I can't really match at all. But I would like to thank the ESRC for having given me this award. And I'd also like to congratulate Jane on such a splendid account of herself in the film we've just seen. I'd like to mention the fact that she's now chairing the Child Poverty Action Group, and that I hope that the credit she can draw from being a finalist can help the Child Poverty Action Group have its own impact, much needed these days. Now, like all the other winners who've spoken, I have to confess to these achievements just being the result of teamwork, and to briefly thank my co-authors and colleagues who help create the cohort studies data resource, too numerous to mention individually. I'd also like to appreciate the support I've had from my university employers, from the ESRC, from my family, and from friends, and not least the people who've been looking after my health. And finally, I want to express my thanks to the thousands of people who've contributed their stories to the birth cohort studies. And we are planning to use the prize money to improve the feedback that they get about our work. And I hope that will be considered a form of impact. Thank you.
So thank you to Tanya, and many congratulations to Heather for winning that prize and for the fitting tribute that it makes to John Hills and his memory. Well, I have to say that is comfortably the highlight of my week. What an amazing set of inspiring stories that we have heard this evening of all the work that people are doing and the impact that it has through social sciences. I really hope that you are as inspired as I am to go and talk to the people that you work with and to support them to achieve outstanding economic and societal impact with their research, and hope then to see them on this stage at a future event such as this one. We work really closely with lots and lots of partners in UKRI, and I think that's been very clear again from the videos and from the stories that we've heard. We need to kind of build those relationships and to continue to look at how we do that even better in ensuring world-leading research and innovation continues to flourish and grow in the UK, so that it could continue to make a difference. So really, apart from reminding you once again about the Festival of Social Science, which you were able to engage in lots of different events through that, it only remains to me to congratulate again all of our exemplary finalists and winners, and to say what a privilege and a pleasure it's been to celebrate with you all today your achievements. Just before I close the awards ceremony for the 2022 awards, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be opening the 2023 competition next month in early December, so in about a month's time. So please start thinking about your nominations. So finally, can I thank you all for joining us, both those of people who are in the room today, but also the people on the live stream. We're going to say goodbye to the people who are online now, but the people who are in the room have the opportunity to continue to mingle for a bit longer. So thank you very much, everybody, and congratulations again to all of our winners. Thank you.